Listen, I got a great podcast for you today, so sit down for a few minutes and listen up. But before we get started, please like, share, and subscribe to help the channel continue to grow. If you enjoy what we're doing here on Chargers Talk 4630, don't stop here with the podcast. Head on over to SLMExpressions.com for breaking Chargers news, exclusive updates, and conversations with fellow fans that you won't find anywhere else. Now, Charger fans, if you've been paying attention to the OTAs, if you've been watching the press conferences, if you've been listening to Justin Herbert and Mike McDaniel talk after practice, then you heard some of the same things I heard, right? I've been sitting back watching these interviews, listening to every word, breaking down what Mike McDaniels is saying, breaking down what Justin Herbert was saying, and trying to picture in my mind what this offense is going to look like once they finally put it all together on the football field. And the more I listen, the more excited I get, because what they're talking about is not just another offseason storyline. It's not one of those things we hear every year and forget by week 3, right? What they're talking about has the potential to completely change the way this offense operates. And if you've been paying attention like I have, then you probably already know exactly what I'm talking about. You can hear it in the way McDaniels talks. You can hear it in the way Justin Herbert talks. You can hear it in the emphasis they putting on timing, anticipation, footwork, and getting rid of the football quicker, right? And the more I hear it, the more I think we may be watching the next evolution of Justin Herbert unfold right in front of our eyes. Man, this is going to be a hell of a podcast today. I'm Stacey. This is Chargers Talk 4630. Let's get it. Guys, today I want to talk about something coming out of Chargers OTAs that I absolutely love. We hear all the time about Justin Herbert's arm strength. We hear about the tight spiral, right? We hear about the 2 throws only 2 or 3 quarterbacks in the world can make. We hear about him standing tall in the pocket, taking a hit and still delivering the football 40 yards downfield. All of that is true. But Justin Herbert is one of the most talented quarterbacks walking planet Earth. But today I don't want to talk about what Justin Herbert always does great. I want to talk about what Mike McDaniel was challenging him to do better. Because that's where growth happens, right? From what's coming out of OTAs, McDaniels is putting a major emphasis on Justin Herbert getting the ball out faster, not waiting until the wide receiver gets open, not waiting until the receiver turns his head, but trusting the route, trusting the timing, trusting the spot, and letting that ball go before the receiver even comes out of his break. That is a different kind of football. That is anticipation football. That is rhythm football. That is, I know where you're supposed to be. I trust you to be there. And by the time you turn your head, the football better already be on the way. And let me tell you something. I love that. Because as great as Justin Herbert is, some of the things that make him special can also get him in trouble. Don't react. Pay attention. When you have that kind of arm, sometimes you believe you can wait just a little bit longer. You believe you can hold on to it just a little bit longer. You believe you can make a throw late that most quarterbacks wouldn't even attempt to make. And sometimes he can. But in the National Football League, holding that ball too long can get you hit. It can kill timing. It can get pressure on the offensive line. It could turn a positive play into a sack. It could turn a simple completion into a difficult throw, right? Now, let's be fair. It's not always on Herbert. Sometimes receivers don't separate. Sometimes routes are not clean. Sometimes the protection breaks down. Sometimes the play call don't match the personnel, right? Sometimes the defense just wins. I heard Justin Herbert himself at the podium after practice yesterday. He said, sometimes I have to take the easy ones. Let me just take 3 yards. Let me live for another down. I believe that's the next step. It was so refreshing hearing him say this, and that is why I love that Mike McDaniels is here. He is not walking into the building acting like he's in awe of Justin Herbert. He respects the talent, but he's not worshiping the talent, right? He is coaching the player. There's a difference. A coach who is in awe of Justin Herbert might say, man, just go be special. But a good coach says, you are special, but here is where you got to be better. Get the ball out faster. Clean up the footwork. Trust the timing. Throw it to the right spot. Protect yourself. Take the easy completion. Know when to run. Know when to throw it away. Know when to take the sack and not make a bad situation worse, right? That's coaching. And I respect Justin Herbert just as much for accepting it, because when you are as talented as Herbert, it would be easy to say, I already know who I am. I already know what I could do. I already know I'm one of the best throwers of the football in the National Football League. But from everything we're hearing, Herbert wants to be coached. He wants to be challenged. He wants to be corrected. He wants to be great. That matters. Talent gets you noticed. Work gets you better. Coaching makes you sharper, and humility keeps you growing. And if Justin Herbert is willing to be coached hard by Mike McDaniel, then Charger fans should be so excited about this, because Mike McDaniel has already shown what timing, spacing, speed, and rhythm can do for a quarterback, right? Under a Mike McDaniel offense, the ball has to come out fast, and the receivers have to know where to be. The quarterback has to trust the spot, and defenses have to defend every part of the field. Now imagine that kind of timing and structure with Justin Herbert's arm talent. That is what makes this exciting, because Herbert doesn't need someone to teach him how to be talented. He already is, right? He needs someone to help him make the game easier. Less hero ball, more rhythm, less hits, more efficiency, less waiting, more anticipation, right? You know what this reminds me of? It reminds me of something we've seen happen to some of the greatest quarterbacks that ever played this game. In 2007, that was the Patriots' undefeated season, I remember they had Tom Brady, of course, Dante Stallworth, Randy Moss, Wes Welker, and all them guys, right? They were angry that year because that was coming off the heels of Spygate, when they were allegedly caught illegally videotaping the defensive signals from the Jets, right? Remember that? There was a narrative spreading around the league that you gotta put asterisks on their Super Bowls, because people were saying they may have been cheating all those years. Bill Belichick was so angry about that, and they were trying to put up 50 on every opponent, and it almost worked. They went undefeated all the way up to the Super Bowl. The Giants' defensive line had Michael Strahan, Osi Umenyiora, Justin Tuck, Fred Robbins. Brady was constantly trying to hit Randy Moss deep, but was taking a beating because he had to hold on to the ball too long for those kind of plays to develop. And the Giants wasn't having none of it. But the Giants also exposed something that every quarterback eventually learns. No matter how talented you are, if an elite pass rush can constantly get home, eventually you have to speed up the process. Take Patrick Mahomes. Remember, there was a time when Kansas City's offensive line wasn't very good. The receivers weren't what we were used to seeing from Kansas City, right? The running game wasn't carrying the offense. And all of a sudden, the things that made Patrick Mahomes special started working against him. Why? Because he's Patrick Mahomes. He believes he can make every play. He believes every play is still alive. He believes if he could buy one more second, he can find somebody open. And most of the time, that's what made him great. But when the protection breaks down, when receivers can't separate, and when everything around you is not working, holding on to the football became a problem for Pat Mahomes, and he took hit after hit after hit against Tampa, and they dominated that Super Bowl. Now, let me take it one step further. Let's go back to Tom Brady again. People remember the championships. People remember the touchdowns. But what they don't always remember is how Brady became almost impossible to sack late in his career, right? He understood something. The football travels faster than any pass rusher can. You can have the greatest defensive line in football. You can have all pros coming off the edge. You can have monsters in the middle collapsing the pocket. None of it matters if the quarterback is getting rid of the ball in 2 seconds. By the fourth quarter, those pass rushers were exhausted. They had their hands on their hips, and they were frustrated, right? They were wondering, what the hell do we have to do to get to the quarterback? And that's because Brady mastered the art of anticipation. The ball was gone before the rush got there. The ball was gone before the receiver got open. The ball was gone because he trusted what he saw. And that's what I think Mike McDaniel was teaching Justin Herbert. Not because Herbert isn't great, because he is. Not because Herbert can't make every throw, because we know he can. We've already seen it. Not because Herbert needs to become somebody else, but because the next evolution of Justin Herbert is not about arm strength. It's not about toughness. We know how tough he already is. It's not about athleticism. He's obviously one of the most athletic quarterbacks in the league. We know this, right? The next evolution, I believe, is anticipation, timing, getting the ball out before the defense has a chance to affect the play. And if he adds that to everything he already does well, then I think the rest of the National Football League is going to have a serious problem on their hands. The reason why this evolution has to happen is because Justin Herbert was hit more than any quarterback in football last season. Think about that for a minute. More than any quarterback in the history of the NFL. Mike McDaniel said he watched every throw that Justin Herbert made since becoming a pro. And he said the last couple of years was hard to watch Justin Herbert take hit after hit. And then he went on to say some of that falls on the offensive line, some of that falls on the receivers, some of that falls on the play calling, and some of it falls on the quarterback for holding on to the ball too long trying to make plays. Mike McDaniel understands something that every great offensive coach understands. The football travels faster than any player on the field. The quicker you can get the ball into the hands of your playmakers, the quicker they can get upfield and start making people miss, right? You don't need every play to be a 40-yard bomb. Sometimes a 5-yard completion turns into a 20-yard gain because the receiver catches the ball in stride and has room to operate. That's what Mike McDaniel is building. An offense built on timing, anticipation, trust, getting the ball out, letting the receivers work, keeping the chains moving, and make the defense defend every inch of the field. This offense is about to get real scary for opposing defenses. Because let's be honest, we already know he's big. We already know he's tough. We already know he got one of the strongest arms in the National Football League. We've seen him play through broken fingers, broken hands. We've seen him play through injuries that would have sidelined any other quarterback, right? We've seen him put this franchise on his back. We've seen him help lead the Chargers to the playoffs in back-to-back seasons under Jim Harbaugh, right? None of those things are in question. The talent has never been the issue. The next step is efficiency and anticipation. The next step is learning when to take what's available instead of waiting for the perfect play. Because if he masters that, now you're talking about a completely different quarterback. And I know some people won't like hearing this, but Justin Herbert has looked overwhelmed in the last couple of years we saw him in the playoffs, right? Not because he's not talented, not because he ain't tough enough, but you hear all the great players who won championships say many a times that playoff football is different. Everything happens faster, the windows are tighter, the pressure is greater, defenses disguise things better, every mistake gets magnified. Now, some of that was play calling, some of it was offensive line issues, some of that was the pressure of carrying an entire offense on his shoulders. But all of that is exactly why I love what Mike McDaniels is doing. He's not trying to make Justin Herbert a different quarterback. He's trying to make life easier for him. He's trying to eliminate unnecessary hits. He's trying to speed up the decision making. He's trying to create explosive plays without requiring Justin Herbert to play superhero every snap. I see that as smart football. One of the biggest changes we're hearing from OTAs is the mindset. For years, Herbert was often asked to stay in the pocket, let routes develop, trust his arm talent, and make throws after receivers came open. Now the emphasis is completely different. Throw it before they come out of their break. Trust the route. Trust the timing. Trust the receiver. Trust the system. That is a huge adjustment for a quarterback who has relied on one of the greatest arms in football for most of his career, right? But Herbert didn't resist it. He embraced it. Reports out of OTAs is saying he's already tweaking his footwork and mechanics to match what McDaniel wants him to do. And if you've been listening like I have, you hear those same words right out of Justin Herbert's mouth. That tells me he's all in. Even after showing how great he is, it hasn't went to his head because he's still showing that he's still coachable. That tells me he's willing to change and he's ready for a championship. And great players are usually the ones that's willing to evolve, right? I remember a quote from Ray Lewis that don't have to apply just on the football field. It could apply in any line of work or in your personal life. He said, you got to be willing to sacrifice who you are for who you want to become. He also said greatness requires learning from past failures and taking personal responsibility for your growth. I still use that and carry that with me today. Which brings me to what I heard Herbert say yesterday at his presser. And let me read what Herbert had said, if I can pull this up real quick. Herbert said it's going to be real nice to have an offense where you could do a little bit of everything. The quick game, the play action, the deep ball, because it holds the defense accountable. You know what? He's right. He's right, because now the defense doesn't know what's coming. Under Greg Roman, it was always like the defense was playing like they knew exactly what was coming. Either it was too predictable or they knew the plays. Now, you'll be able to hit them with the quick game. You can hit them with the play action. You can hit them with Herbert rolling outside the pocket. You can hit them deep. You can hit them underneath. Now the defense has to defend everything. And when the defense has to defend everything, that's when quarterbacks start putting up them MVP numbers. That's why I'm excited, because if Justin Herbert can combine his natural gifts with quicker processing, better anticipation, improved footwork, a faster release, then the sky is the freaking limit. And if that happens, I have no doubts that Justin Herbert can put himself squarely in the MVP conversation for real, for real. And once you get into the playoffs, watch out. Look the freak out, because that's when all these little improvements we've been talking about become the difference between getting bounced early and making a legitimate run at a championship. And when the big play is there, believe me, Herbert can rip it better than anyone else. Nobody is saying take away what makes him special. You do not take the cannon away from Justin Herbert. You just teach him when to use it. That is the difference between being dangerous and being deadly. And that is where this offense can take a major step. If Herbert gets that ball out quicker, if the receivers understand the timing, if they come out of their breaks expecting the ball to already be there, this offense becomes a lot harder to defend. The pass rush does not have as much time. The offensive line does not have to hold blocks forever. The receivers play faster. The quarterback take less hits. The offense stays ahead of the chains. And when defenses start creeping up to defend the quick game, that is when Herbert can go over the top. That is when the arm strength shows up. That is when the explosive plays come. So to me, this is not about criticism of Justin Herbert. This is the evolution of Justin Herbert. What this is a great quarterback being pushed and challenged to be even greater. And that is what every Charger fan should want, right? Because regular season talent is one thing. Playoff football is different. In the playoffs, the ball has to come out. Decisions have to be fast. Protection has to be helped by timing. The quarterback has to know when to take the easy play and when to live for another down. That is how you survive. That is how you advance. That is how you get to championship football. So yes, I love what I'm hearing from OTAs. I love that Mike McDaniels is challenging and pushing Justin Herbert. I love that Herbert is receiving the coaching. I love that receivers are being trained to expect the ball on time. And I love that this offense is not just saying, Justin, save us. They're saying, Justin, let us build something around you that makes your greatness easier to reach. That is what good coaching looks like. And when this thing comes together, Charger fans, we might be looking at the best version of Justin Herbert we have ever seen. Not because he suddenly became talented, but Mike McDaniels is slowing down the game. And if all that comes together, the rest of the National Football League is in freaking trouble. We officially have 8 months, 1 day, 10 hours, 58 minutes, and 50 seconds to January 31st of 2027, and that's when the Chargers go to the AFC title game. Thank you, Jim Harbaugh, for finally helping Justin Herbert by bringing in the biggest acquisition of the offseason, and that's Mike McDaniel. I'm telling you, the Chargers are going to the Super Bowl this year. Mark my words. I'm Stacey. Bolt up. I'm out of here.